This meeting is for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Rico C will be sharing on From the Dumpster to the Divine for 50 minutes. This is Rico's third time speaking at the Broken Elevator, and we are absolutely delighted to have him back here with us at God's meeting. Please help me give a warm welcome to Rico C from Palm Desert, California. His home group is Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. Over to you, Rico.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate your love and service. First time I'm with you. I like it very well. Thank you. Ooh. My name is Rico Cruz, and I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. Blessed to be here by the graceful, loving, and caring God who I did not want to be bothered with when I first met you. If you don't mind, I need to take a second. I have a little prayer I'd like to say for myself. It's not for you. I'm some parts still selfish. It helps me get grounded and helps me get aligned. I have to be aligned so I can carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, not the message of Rico Cruz Anonymous, because there's no such fellowship. Just bear with me a moment. God, please take from me my false pride and my grandiosity, all my phoniness and self-importance, and help me find the courage that shows itself in gentleness, the wisdom that shows itself in simplicity, and the true power that shows itself in modesty and humility. I will be done. As I said, my name is Rico Cruz, and I'm grateful for becoming alcoholic. Glad to be here today. Always an honor and a privilege to be here at the Broken Elevator. And I imagine that means the elevator's broke. I probably had to take the steps. So I guess I better take the steps because we don't have an elevator. I'll tell you a little bit about the beginning of my, how could I call it, tumultuous journey. And really what I'd like to talk about is what happened to me after I met you, because that's much more profound than before I met you. I'm born and raised in Spanish Harlem in New York to a very, very poor Puerto Rican family. And we didn't have things and stuff. All we had was each other. And I remember my security blanket was my grandmother. I loved my grandmother to be around. She was my safety. She was what I trusted. And I just always felt good when I was with her. And it was time for me to go to school as a little boy. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And in those days, they were busing us to different schools. And we had to walk to the bus stop, which was maybe 2 city blocks long. But it was the longest walk of my entire life, bar none. And she held my hand and she walked me to the bus stop. And as we got closer, I looked up at her hoping she'd say, "Okay, Papi, come on, vete vaya. Tell me to come back home and it'll be okay." But that didn't happen. She just said, "Come on, let's go." And we got to the bus stop and the bus door opened and she looked at me and I went to the bus stop and I got on the first landing and I looked back at her with those little puppy dog eyes, hoping she'd pull me back. She said, "Vete vaya, vete vaya." And I got on the bus. And when I got to the top landing, I'll never forget it. Those kids had in their eyes what you had in your eyes when I first met you. And that was a welcoming spirit. And those kids looked at me and they were laughing and playing and jumping up and down, having a good idea. And I looked at my grandmother and she went like that. And I looked at those kids and I gave them the look. And the look was, don't bother me. I don't want to play with you. I don't want to know you. And I will hurt you. And they accommodated me. They left me alone. I found me a seat in the back of the bus, looking out of the window the entire time we were there. When we got to our destination, they did the same thing. They went laughing and screaming and running off the bus, having a good old time, and went in this big schoolyard and started playing. I was the last one off the bus. I walked slowly and gently into that yard, and I found me a handball court. And I found the handball court so I could lean against it, which means no one can come from behind me. 5 years old. And I looked out in front of me. And this one kid looked like he thought about coming over and befriending me. And he took a second look and he made the right decision. He said, "No, I better leave him alone." We go into whatever classroom we were in. I have no idea what's happening. I found my favorite seat by the window, and I looked out the window the entire time. When it was time to go back, I got back on the bus. This time, they really accommodated me. They made way for me to pass through and get that seat in the back of the bus by the window. And I just looked out that window the whole time, wanting to see my grandmother. Why do I tell you this story? A couple of reasons. To demonstrate to you the power of Alcoholics Anonymous once it's in your life. The power of these steps, these traditions, these concepts, and these promises. And the loving compassion in which its members greeted me. The fiber that has run through my entire life until I met you was fear. I told you I'm from Spanish Harlem in New York. We used to go to Yankee Stadium for football games and baseball games, and I'd be in the stadium with 55,000 people all alone. How could you be all alone by yourself with 55,000 people cheering and yelling and screaming and having a good time, and I'm sitting there all alone? I walked through my life like that until I met you. No matter how much I had, no matter how pretty she was, no matter how good I used to dress when I was a kid, no matter how well dressed I was, I always wanted what you had. For some reason, I always judged my insides by your outsides, and I always came up short. I have 5 sisters and no brothers, so there was way too much estrogen in my house when I was growing up at that age. Fast forward 20 years, that changed. But as a little young knucklehead whippersnapper growing up, it was just too much. And we lived in the projects. I tell you, we were very, very, very poor. And when it's raining and snowing, there's nowhere to go and there's nothing to do. And each one of my sisters would invite over 2.5 friends, and I'm in the house with 14.5 women not knowing what to do. And I resort to my default system. I go to the window and I look out the window. Well, in Spanish Harlem, when you look out the window, let me tell you what it looks like. You see hoes, pimps, jackers, murders, junkies, alcoholics, stone drunks. That's what you see out the window. And that's what I looked at for many years. Growing up, when I go to school, I come trampling down the stairway and I have to jump over bodies laying on the staircases, not knowing if they were alive or they were drunk. I didn't know. I didn't care. I just kept moving and didn't want to touch them. So it wasn't quite a vision for you when I grew up. But we had one thing that I didn't know we had, and I didn't know it until I had met you guys and done a 4th and 5th step. What I had was a very rich, unconditional love in my household that I didn't know I had. And that is all we had was each other. We would laugh, play, fun, cry, fight, everything. But we were a very close-knit family. We were one of the families in the neighborhood, three families in the neighborhood that had a 2-parent household. We were in the minority. And everybody used to like to come over to the Cruz's house because my mother was always cooking. We were always playing music and we were always dancing and having fun. And people know if they came over to my house, the rule is you can't leave unless you eat. And if you don't eat or have a doggy bag in your hand, you're going to hear from my mother. She was that kind of mother. So everybody used to always come over and get something to eat. And we'd laugh and dance. You guys call it salsa. I'm Puerto Rican. We didn't call it salsa. That came out later. We just called it music. And we'd be dancing, having fun. Not too much alcohol, probably some, but not noticeably. And it was just about fun because we didn't have anything. The only thing we had was each other. And I never, ever appreciated that. In fact, I resented it. I never appreciated the richness in which I grew up with, although we were poor, until I met you, men and women in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you told me from whence I came. I had no idea. I hated it because all my friends had things and stuff, and I didn't, and I couldn't. Fast forward, I grow up, We go to school. I'm a fairly decent student. We go to junior high school. I find out I have some athletic skills that I didn't know about, and I hid behind that. I became an all-city, all-star, all-American basketball player, and I hid behind that. But I never let you know, or I don't know if I was able to, who lived inside of me, because I thought if you knew who lived inside of me, you would not like me, because I didn't like me. But they liked the guy I was, the popular guy I was, the guy that could communicate, doing this. I hid behind that. But that's what I did. That wasn't who I was. I didn't meet who I was until I was introduced to you. And I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't come here laughing and joking and skipping by and looking through a little window and say, oh, look at those people in there in Alcoholics Anonymous having a good time. I think I'll go join them. No, I came kicking and screaming, and everything I let go of has claw marks in it because I get attached to things. And I went to life like that. And I got out of high school. I got a scholarship. But in those days, I only had a half a scholarship. They wouldn't pay room and board. They just paid tuition and books. And my mother was going to have to come up with the other half of the scholarship. And she couldn't. She was a very poor, beautiful Puerto Rican woman and didn't have it. So I met with the coach and I met with the administrator. I said, can you hold the scholarship for me for a year? And I'll go get me a job and I'll come up with the other half. And my mother was heartbroken. God bless her soul. She was heartbroken. I was going to be the first one in my family to go to the university. And she was heartbroken. I said, don't worry, Mom. Don't worry. I'm going. I'm the only son. I'm going. And I went and got me a job. And in New York, even at 16, 17, 18, this is how we dress when we go to work. Doesn't matter if you're the mayor clerk or the CEO. This is how we go to work. I never saw a woman wear pants to a job interview in my life until I came to California. They wore gloves, skirts, dresses. Never seen a woman in pants. A job interview? Are you crazy? But that's how I was raised. It's cool now, but that's how I was raised. And I'm telling you about me, not about you. So I get this job. I'm having fun. I'm going suited and booted. I spend every penny I have on clothes because I wanted to look like my environment. And the people who worked in Midtown Manhattan, they were dressed to the nines. Everybody dressed for success. So that became the thing I wanted to be, the best dresser, hoping that you would think I was somebody that I was not. And I heard around these rooms, it is better to be hated for who you are than it is to be loved for who you are not. And I spent half my life being loved for who I was not, because what I did was not who I was. And it took about 2 or 3 inventories for me to be able to separate that. So I go on, I get me a little party life going. I'm having fun. I'm laughing and dancing. We got a club in New York, in Manhattan, called the Palladium. And we go there on Thursdays and Sundays only, because the people who go on Thursdays or Sundays are the people who could dance. There was no fakers and shakers out there. And they'd have these beautiful women wear dress, and they go up to this balcony. And on the balcony, you could look down and see the dancers. And they'd see who could really dance. And then they would ask you to dance. Say, papi, vamos a bailar. Seguro. And we'd just be dancing. Now, I hadn't met you yet, so I didn't know anything about blackouts. So I'd go to the dance. I'd see Holly Berry over there, Cindy Crawford over there. I'm sucking on that vodka like there's no tomorrow. And I go home, and I wake up, and I'm wondering, who's this next to me? And I look over, and I say, oh, no, how'd you get here? She said, you don't remember? I said, no, I don't remember you. How'd you get here? I said, did we do anything last night? She said, no, you fell asleep. I said, whew, wow, I escaped that one. But I wouldn't be telling you if it was a one-shot deal. That became a pattern. I had no idea who or what I was going to wake up with, but I'm still having fun. During the week, I'm having fun. I'm going to work, taking care of business. You know, at 19 years old, I have a son out of wedlock. I'd never been married. And I go, oh, no, what am I going to do now? Now, I wasn't getting married. I was out. I was a pre-med major at Hofstra University. No, I can't get married. How am I going to support this kid? Well, I was just a senior mail clerk at a high-end construction company, downtown Manhattan, and I'm doing okay, but I only make enough money to buy clothes. I don't have enough money for anything else. So I tell his mother, I said, do me a favor. You raise him for 2 years. Give me time to clean up my act, get a nice place for us to live in a school district that would be okay for him to take care of business, because I'm in the street all day long. And we'll see what happens. So she accommodated me. She didn't like it, but she accommodated me. I had to clean up my act. And my act was, and this is Alcoholics Anonymous, so I'm going to minimize it out of respect to Alcoholics Anonymous, but my respect to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had me a little import-export business going on, and I was making money hand over fist. You know, I had cars and jewelry and jewels and girls and all the glitz and glitter that comes with that kind of business, but it wasn't legal. So I said, I didn't want to be a deadbeat dad. I've been raised around deadbeat dads. I vowed not to ever be one. So I said, I got to clean this up. So I got me a little apartment up in Hollywood that I could work out of. I got me a little duplex and a home where my son and I could live. And I got me about 2-3 hostages. I mean, I think you guys call them girlfriends, who would make sure he'd be all right while I was doing what I was doing. And things were going great for a while. But I'm still drinking, but no effects. I'm just having a little sippy poo here, a little sippy poo here, but the sippy poo never stops. But I'm an ex-athlete, so I guess I have a strong whatever constitution, and I'm not feeling any effects. Now, there's more and more incidents of waking up with who did it and ran, but, you know, that's just a sidebar issue, no big thing. And it's not affecting my son. I'm making sure he has everything he needs, plus. Well, he grows up and he gets in junior high school, and he said, Dad, they playing football at school. I want you to train me. I said, train you? Why you want me to train you? You got to go. He said, no, I want you to train me. I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you make sure your reading and your reading comprehension is up to par, and you make sure that you learn how to write, or I'll teach you how to write because I'm a fairly good writer, and you learn math inside out, if you can do those 3 things, I'll train you. Because those three things, as far as I'm concerned, are the basic fundamentals, which don't mean anything, but they say, if you can master that, you can learn anything if you put your mind to it. And I was trying to give him a educational foundation. So he says, okay, he agrees to it. So we go on with life, father, son. We're more like brothers. You got a 19-year-old knucklehead punk kid raising a kid. That's a kid raising a kid. That's not a man raising a kid. And I was immature because for me, it was all about the party. Sometimes he got in the way of my party, and nothing gets in the way of my party. So one day I come home from work, and I should have paid attention to those ominous warnings, as you guys told me they were. My mother's at my house talking to my girlfriend. And I put my key in the door, and it sounded like they're really chattering. And I'm coming home from work. I don't come home from work unless I'm halfway lit. And I'm suited and booted. I got my briefcase. I'm getting ready to go in. And as soon as I open the door, that noise turns to sheer silence. Silencia. You can hear a pin drop. Now, I didn't know it then, but I know it now. If you go in your own house and you hear a lot of noise and you enter the premises and you hear silence, they're talking about you. And that's what they were doing. They were talking about me. I didn't know it. I didn't care anyway. So I go in my freezer. I was taught good drinking manners. Always keep a pint of vodka in your freezer just to take the poison off the top. I drop my briefcase in the dining room. I take my suit jacket off. I leave it there. I unbutton my vest. I go in the freezer and I take a pull. And I go, great day at work. And I come out in the living room and it's still silence. And my mother's looking at me. And she's just looking at me. She's not saying nothing. I'm raised in a very huggy, kissy, hold on family. Don't matter if you're man, woman, child, don't matter who you are, we hugging and kissing you. That's just how I was raised. And no hug, no kiss, no, ¿qué pasa, papi? ¿Cómo está? Nothing. Okay, I know how to do that. I go in the freezer, I get me another pull of my vodka, I come back again. What's going on, Mom? And my mother, first of all, I got to tell you, my mother is the most beautiful, intelligent, loving, compassionate woman I have ever met in my life. I worshiped my mother. She was my shiro, which is my female hero. My father was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He dropped out of school at about the 9th grade to help support 11 brothers and sisters. So he wasn't much of a conversationalist, but my mother was. So I adored my mother. But my mother knew I was a little rough and tumble guy. She put up with it. She accepted it. So she starts walking towards me slowly. So I just stand firm ground thinking I'm going to get me a hug, but she's coming closer. Now, my mother, more than anybody else in the world, other than the guys on the block, no one comes in Rico space. That's just the way it was. I used to like to fight a lot. And she's coming close and closer, and she's seen me before. She's had to pull me off of people. Nobody breaks that space. That's my sacred space. You don't come in there. You can call me anything, do anything, throw things at me, but you can't come into that space. And this woman raised me. She knows that. And she's still coming closer. So now she's getting too close. So as she's coming closer, I'm slowly backing up until I can't back up no more. And she's still coming. And I can feel her nose on my nose. I could feel her breath on my lips. And I said, Mom, what you doing? And she looks at me and she says, you're drinking too much. I said, Mom, what are you talking about? I'm not drinking too much. Look at this house. Look at those cars. Look at my duplex. Look at my son's room. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. That's all me. I'm taking credit for everything. That's all me. And she's coming closer. And she gets right at my face and she puts her hand in my chest. Now I'll never forget it. She said, Mister, I don't know who you are, but you're not my son. My son died. And it felt like somebody had taken a dagger and just jammed it into my entire, every fiber of my being, over and over and over. And this was the woman I loved and endeared more than life itself. And she looked at me. Now, I didn't meet you yet. I didn't know I was suffering from a threefold disease of mind, body, and spirit. I didn't know I was in the grips of a progressive disease. I didn't know that. I thought I was just having fun. I wasn't hurting anybody. And she looked at me with that disgusting look, and she shook her head, and she left the house. And I called her everything but the Son of God, my mother, the one I would live for or die for. I didn't know alcohol would not let me respond appropriately with the feelings of incomprehensible demoralization, shame, guilt, remorse. I didn't know that. But what alcohol did do, it allowed me to respond with rage and anger. And I said, don't you ever come back to my effing house again. I don't need you. Mr. Big Shot, the woman I love and admire more than life itself. Still, I don't adhere to the warning. Maybe something is happening, but I'm partying too much. I don't have time to check out and do a internal inquiry and inquire with my inner wisdom. Is this taking place? I'm a party guy. I know how to fix that. Get some of those party favors, a little pull of vodka. I'm good to go. Put the music on. So life goes on. I'm training my son. He gets well trained. He's in high school now. His coach offers him a scholarship. He runs home. Bobby, I got to talk to you. Hey, great out there, Bobby. Great out there. Bobby. He's lit up like a Christmas tree. He said, my coach wants to talk to you. I said, about what? I'm not exactly a social butterfly. Talk to me about what? He says, they may want to offer me a scholarship. I said, that's beautiful, man. We bumped, we hugged. I told you I come from a huggy, kissy background. We hugged, we kissed. I said, I'm proud of you, boy, because I know all the dirt I'm doing. I'm proud of you. He says, okay, can you be here Friday at about 1 o'clock? He'll be at LAX about that time. He'll be here by 1:30. I said, sure I can. So Friday comes. We live in a house where all the stuff is downstairs, bedrooms upstairs, attic above that. I'm getting ready to leave for work. I'm suited and booted. I grab my briefcase. I'm getting ready to go. I hear this boom, 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 boom. It's my son trampling down the steps. He's a big boy now. He says, Bobby, it's better day. I said, what's up, Bobby? He says, don't forget, please. 1:30, the coach is going to be here, please. Now, this is the biggest day in this man-child's life. Biggest day, bar none. I said, don't worry about it. I have no clients today. It's Christmas time. We're just going to exchange Christmas gifts, have a little sippy poo, and wish each other Merry Christmas. I said, I'll be home by 10:30, 11. And when I walked out of that door, he said, gracias, papi. When I walked out of that door, you couldn't have told me that I wasn't going to be there at 11:30 for the biggest day in my son's life. You couldn't have made me believe that. I'd ask you, what are you drinking? Let me have some, because there's no way in the world I'm not going to be here for my man-child. And I go to work, and we exchange gifts, and I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, so sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission, which I shall. And we get to work, and how we do it at my office is around Christmas time. This is a long time ago, so $1,000 went a long way. $1,000 is nothing now. It's like a quarter. We all chip in $1,000 around the holidays. We all pool in, and we get a bunch of everything everybody likes. We want everybody to have what they like. So we got one table full of party favors, powder up to the ceiling, party favors. Every kind of imaginable liquor you could even dream of on a big corporate table down that way. And we start sipping and hugging and wishing each other Merry Christmas. 10:45, phone rings. Secretary says, Rico, your son's on the phone. I said, tell him I call him back, because I'm busy with the party favors and the vodka. 15 minutes later, ring. Come on, Rico, your son's on the phone. Talk to him. All right, put him through. Papi, ¿qué pasa? And he tells me that, don't forget. I said, how could I forget, man? You my man. How could I forget? And I'm believing this with every fiber of my being. And I hang up. Hour later, ring. Rico, talk to your son. I get on the phone. I say, I'm on my way. I'm packing my bag. I'm on my way. Half hour later, ring. I'll be there in a minute. I'm going to make a long story short. I get there at 8:30 p.m. at night. This is the man that I would live and die for and have for 18 years of my life. I didn't know about that imaginary seatbelt coming on once I picked up that vodka. I didn't know I was in the grips of that progressive disease of mind, body, and spirit. And I didn't know, even though I wanted to go, that I couldn't go. And I walk in the house, and I'm lit like a Christmas tree. Sheer silence. One more time. And I look at my girlfriend, she just puts her head down. I look at my son. If eyes could kill, and my son worships me, at least he used to. If eyes could kill, you'd have somebody else here talking to you today. And again, I was appalled. I didn't know that alcohol wasn't going to let me respond appropriately with apologies, with incomprehensible demoralization, with shame and guilt, and the whole litany of I'm sorry. I didn't know alcohol was going to let me do that. Alcohol had me respond with anger and rage. And I said, boy, if you ever look at your father like that, all of a sudden I want to be father of the year. Look at your father like that, I will take your black Puerto Rican ass out of here. Don't you ever look at your father. And I'm going off like father of the week, yelling at him. And he turns around and he very gently, I'll never forget it, walks into his room and he very gently closes the door so I wouldn't even imagine that he might have slammed the door because he knew better. And he went on about his business and I went on about mine. I went in there to the freezer. I pulled out my bottle. I took a super big plug. I did up a little bit of my party favors that was in my briefcase. And I started calling my sisters. I got 5 sisters. Do you know what happened? It's all of them said the same thing. Have you been drinking? No, I haven't been drinking. Slammed down the phone. Still, I don't get it. And I'm a pretty sharp guy. I don't get it. My son gets the scholarship. I congratulate him. He goes away to the University of Utah. I give him a little bit of money, a lot of money, and to be okay. And it's the first time in 18 years of my life that I don't have to have any accountability or responsibility for anything or anyone, because I had never been married that whole time. And when he left, I pulled out that bullhorn and I said, ladies and gentlemen, it is now party time. And I went crazy. I had a house, a home, a duplex, an apartment that I used to work my party favors out of. Within 4 years, I was helpless, homeless, godless, thoughtless, penniless. I didn't look like this. I didn't feel like this. I didn't walk like this. I didn't talk like this. And I damn sure didn't smell like this. I was in oblivion. I was buried in the depths of that disease. And I still hadn't met you yet. I was still wondering, how did I get here? And I used to drink a fifth of vodka to try to figure out how I got here. Because Bill Wilson told me later on, men of brilliant minds think better when they're drunk. That's a lie. And I was roaming the streets for 2.5 years, homeless, helpless, and godless. And I was saying to myself, how did I get here? People who do what I do don't usually get here. I'm an All-American basketball player. I went to a good junior college, a prestigious university. I've been to grad school, and I got to practice. I'm a professional. What am I doing eating out of dumpsters? How did I get here? Thick head, still doesn't register. And through an unforeseen series of events, I wind up in this homeless shelter, helpless, thoughtless, godless. And I look around at these people on this soup line, and I'm looking down my nose at them. And I'm like, look at these people, damn. And it takes me 10 minutes to figure out I'm on the same line they are, needing the same needs they are. And that was the first part of my wake-up call. I said, wow. I had my first spiritual experience, very first, because I'm a no God baby. I came to you with no God. And when you came near me with your God, I gave you the look I gave those 5-year-old kids on that bus. Don't you come near me with your God. Don't you dare come near me with your God. And you didn't. And it was a smart move. So I vowed I would never eat out of a dumpster again. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm up in Nevada doing a geographic. I hear this door open. I know from experience, this is the door that the night manager is getting ready to throw out the cleanest, dirty food, and I'm going to catch it before it goes in the dumpster. Because I don't want to go in the dumpster no more. I can't do it. I've been doing it for 2.5 years. I cannot do it. And he throws it out. I hear the footsteps, and I run out, and I go to catch it, and it hits my hands, and for a minute, I feel joy, and a second later, it busts, and it goes down into the dumpster. And I feel the wet, hot plastic and dirty coffee and dirty scrambled eggs up and down my arms, and I start crying. And I tell you, I had my first spiritual experience at a dumpster. That's why we call it from the dumpster to the divine. And I had an out-of-body experience. But somehow, some way, I rose up here and I started looking down here at this disgusting animal at this dumpster. And about 20 seconds later, I embraced, oh my God, that's me. And I've never had so much fear instilled in me in my life. I have been around cock guns, guns in the ear, the mouth, pull, safety didn't release. I mean, many times I should have been dead, and I wasn't. None of that has ever instilled that much fear in me than I had when I saw the vision of I was the animal at the dumpster. And I went running aimlessly down the street, crying and screaming, because I never wanted to experience that vision again. And I said, I'm going to drink, I'm going to do whatever I got to do, but I cannot ever see that vision again because it will kill me. It will kill me. And I told you in the beginning in kindergarten, fear was the fiber that has run through my life until I met you. This was exponentially 100 times the kind of fear, just the sight of that. And I don't know what I was thinking, but about 2.5 weeks later, I wound up in this homeless shelter. And in this homeless shelter, and every morning before breakfast at 7:30, they had this little meeting where they were passing around this little funny blue book and reading out of it. Didn't faze me. I didn't know what it was. And at 2:30 in the afternoon, you had to go to this writer's workshop. I thought that might be cute because I like to write. I'm a fairly good writer. And at night, 5:30, you had to go to this participation meeting. And I said, are you crazy? I don't want to participate with me. What makes you think I want to participate with you? No, I'm a loner. Little did I know. The book talks about what was once what appeared to be that flimsy reed wound up being the powerful hand of a loving God. And that's what that homeless shelter was for me. I started listening to them in the morning. And I heard this lady say I was in a cold sleep. And I came up out of the sleep. And I heard her say, rarely have we seen a person who has thoroughly followed our path. What the hell is she talking about? I go back to sleep. A week later, I get jolted out of my sleep. I don't know what woke me up. I know now it woke me up, but I didn't know then. And this man is sitting at the table saying, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are 100 men and women who have recovered from a semi-altered state of mind and body. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it. It was like somebody speaking a foreign language to me. And after time went on, they sent me off to this treatment center. And in this treatment center, I started hearing the message panels would come in of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was like, I didn't know that I didn't know. And when I got out, I met up with this man. I didn't have anything to do, anywhere to go. And in those days, you used to be able to smoke in the meetings. And I was always be cleaning ashtrays and washing dishes and hanging up cups and stuff just so I could sit around and listen. And one day, that's what I was doing. This old man said, come here, Sonny. Now, I still got that Puerto Rican pride. I'm still arrogant. I'm about 99 pounds soaking wet with 2 pair of pants on and 2 sweatshirts. And I spring back and say, my name is Sonny. Yo soy boricua. Es Rico Cruz. And if I turn sideways, I could probably dodge raindrops. And I'm sticking out this chest that ain't there. He says, come over here and sit down and shut up. And I said, yes, sir. And I sit down and I shut up. And I realized then, my first surrender, he knew I was dying and I knew I was dying. And when he said, sit down and shut up, I said, yes, sir. Big, tough El Boricua. Yes, sir. And I sat down and listened. He said, let me tell you something, Sonny. I wanted to smack him, but I wanted to live more than I wanted to smack him. He says, excuse me, let me tell you something. He said, we're not going to play with these forwards and this historical stuff. We'll get to that later. He says, I know about you. I know who you are. I said, who am I? He said, you the guy they call the no God baby. I said, yeah, that's me. He said, why no God? I said, when I was about 10, 11 years old, I was raised in Catholicism. I was studying to be an altar boy, but I was dyslexic. And at that time, the masses were all in Latin. So I was trying to learn Latin, but I couldn't learn fast enough for them. And one priest would hold me, and one priest would beat my knuckles until they just stopped bleeding and turning black, blue, and purple. And God bless them. They thought they were trying to help me learn Latin faster, but it just alienated me. And I was defiant. And all the other little would-be altar boys were like crying. I vowed I would die before I cried. And as they beat my knuckles, I just stood there and stared at them. A little boy, full of defiance. And I vowed I will never cry before no man. and my knuckles were taut. And I'd go home, and my mother said, "What happened?" I said, "I was fighting." She said, "When are you going to stop fighting?" I couldn't break her heart because she thought the priest walked on water. I couldn't tell her what they were doing to me. And that last time I went back, and we had altar boys, and we went over the stuff, and went over some stuff. Now it was time for everybody to recite their thing, and I couldn't do it. And one of them grabbed me, and the other one held my hand, and they beat the holy hell out of my knuckles until they were black, blue, purple, and bleeding. And I pulled away from them, and I yanked away because they beat me extra hard because I wouldn't cry. They wanted me to cry. I would not cry. I would have died before I cried. And I ran out that church, and I stood at that church steps, and I looked up at that cross, and I said, if this is what you're about, God, I will never, ever dawn the steps of a church again in my life. And I went running home. And I didn't until I met you. And I came in and know God, baby. Old man said, okay, that was then. This is now. He said, let's take a look at this. And he takes me through the doctor's opinion. Word by word, line by line, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. He said, let's take a look at this, see where we are. And I should always think he was scheming on me because he'd always talk about we instead of me. And he takes me to the doctor's opinion, and I have a vision of how I talk to my mother. I have a vision of how I could make it home for my son. And the dots slowly start lining up. And I find out I do suffer from a threefold disease of mind, body, and spirit, that I have that spiritual malady. I have that phenomenon of craving, and I suffer from that allergy. And I can stop, but I can't stay stopped. I stopped 1,000 times in one day, but I couldn't stay stopped. And we get to that doctor's opinion, and I get a little ray of hope, just a little bit, a little mustard seed. But I'm not satisfied because I'm still a no God baby. And everybody around me in AA is talking about, don't worry, God got you, God got you, God this, God this. I said, you and God, leave me alone. I was very defiant, very angry, very vindictive. Leave me alone. Because every time I heard the G word or the God idea, in my head, my knuckles start hurting and bleeding. I said, get away from me with that God thing. It's not me. So we go into, we read the doctor's opinion, first 8 pages of Bill's story. There is a solution, more about alcoholism, and more about alcoholism makes my hair stand up on my head. I went, what? And we get to more about alcoholism. Thank you, Tanya. And we get to more about alcoholism, and the dots start lining up. I said, okay, that's cool. And he takes me into We Agnostics. Now you got a Puerto Rican sleaze bag just climbing out of a dumpster, and he takes me into We Agnostics. And for some reason, it starts making sense to me that it just might be wiser to believe than not to believe. And I believe. I just don't believe he's going to work in my life. He already showed me how he's working my life. He got 2 priests beating the hell out of my knuckles. No, I don't want none. Thank you, but no thank you. And I'm going through life like this. And he takes me through the 3rd step prayer. Now, I'd love to tell you I had a profound experience, but I did not. I just went through it because I believed in him. I didn't believe that God was going to be working in my life. He said, just believe, I believe. I said, I know you believe. I see the way people relate to you. I see the light in your eyes. I just see darkness around me. He said, just believe, I believe. I do the inventory. We get to We Agnostics. I do the inventory. We enter how it works. And I'm starting to get just another little ray of help. Maybe something will happen for me. And I go through the inventory. I share it with him. Hold back nothing. Because now I don't want relief. I want to get free. I don't want to feel better. I want to be free. Whatever I'm suffering from, I need to be free with it. Else I'm going to be like I always been, out the gate by 8, in the spoon by noon, on the floor by 4, and back in the pen by 10. That's how I'll be if I don't find some freedom around here. And we go through there. I do my 5. I go home without his instructions. I sit quietly for an hour, see if there's anything I left off. I left off one thing. I called them. I said, I left one thing out, not intentionally. They said, let's do it. We take care of it. I go sit again. Slate number 1 is clean. I'm okay. He starts taking me through 6 and 7. Now, in 6 and 7, I had the most powerful experience of my entire life. In 6 and 7, 2 and 3 came alive for me. It didn't come alive for me when I took it. And I remember it was a very emotional experience. I was crying and screaming at God. And I was saying, I don't know who you are. You've never been in my life. But if you are up there, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, please help me. I'm dying. Second surrender. I'm dying. Can you help me? And I come into 6 and I come out of 7. And it was as if the world stopped. I was suspended with no gravity. And it seemed like every fiber of my being went, I don't know what happened. I still don't know what happened, but I know something happened. And I knew I was no longer alone. And I started making that list. And I went out and made those amends. And I knocked on those doors. And then we coming out the backside, and my buddy tells me, we have now entered the world of the spirit. And I'm looking at him like he's crazy. Understanding and effectiveness is going to be our focus. Well, I hadn't been effective in understanding in over 20 years. But when did we enter the world of the spirit? I'm just a no God baby coming out of a dumpster. When did that happen? And that's when I realized God did not need my permission to work in my life. I didn't know that. I thought I had to give him the green light. And I didn't give him nothing because he beat my knuckles. And he worked in my life. And I start doing step 10 on a daily basis and mailing it to my sponsor. And we go over the phone because I lived far away. And you go figure, this Puerto Rican sleaze bag gets into step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood God or didn't understand God. And I fall in love. And I fall in love with step 11. From that day to now, that's my jam. That's what I do. Not because I'm some great guy walking on water, because I've had so many experiences through prayer and meditation. But I've also learned that that is one of the suggestions in step 11. It is not the only one. A lot of guys I work with, they go in prayer and meditation. I said, hold up. What is the goal of step 11? Prayer and meditation? No, that is not the goal. That's one of the means, of many means. The goal is conscious contact. That's what we're chasing. We're not chasing prayer and meditation. We're chasing conscious contact. And he said, oh. And he was having difficulty with prayer and meditation. And when he realized that, I told him, that's just a road. What difference does it make if you take TWA to New York or you take United? What's the difference? And he got it, and I got it. And I established a conscious contact with God as best I can understand him. Because I believe if God is small enough to understand, he ain't going to be big enough for me to trust. I need a God bigger than that damn half gallon of vodka I've been polishing away half a day. And I found one right here in Alcoholics Anonymous through you men and women. And I'm grateful for that. And then he eased me on once I got that rhythm of that on awakening and that nightly review. And my go-to that has saved my hide many times is that pause. I got you, sweetheart. Thank you. That pause. That pause has saved me many a day. And I learned through that 11th step to stop reacting and start acting. Acting through the spirit. Because you get to stand in the sunlight of the spirit one time don't mean you get to stay there. It's by grace we come. It's by work we stay. Not hard work, just work. Help somebody else besides yourself. So we go to step 12, Now, most of the guys that I got sober with, step 12, they running around the treatment centers and podiums, and they carrying the message, because they finally can carry the message, this message, instead of carrying the message they've been carrying all their lives. I stayed in the first half. I looked at having had this spiritual awakening as a result of those first 11 steps I just finished taking. I stayed there before I even thought about the message. And I said, God, show me what happened. And I went to a silent retreat, a one-man silent retreat. I've been to many retreats by myself. And I went to Maui. I had never been to Hawaii in my life. And I went to Maui. And I said, I'm going to go on a silent retreat for 5 days. And I made arrangements with the retreat master. I said, I'm not going to be talking or playing TV or radio. I'd appreciate any cooperation you can give me. I'm not being rude, but I'm going into the inner world. And every morning I had a fresh bowl of juice and a fresh bowl of fresh fruit at my doorstep. No knocks ever. And it took me about 20 hours to get the noise out of my head. And I just went inside and introduced myself to inner wisdom. And from that day to this, I have an inner teacher now. Thanks be to you, not be to me. I didn't know all the answers I needed to do what I needed to do were inside me. I thought they were outside me. I thought it was about what you were doing. And I found out different. No resentment. I still love you. And what I did was I had an experience. I didn't read a book. I had an experience. I had a God experience. And I'm just an ordinary Joe. I come from way below ordinary means, trying to do some extraordinary things with some extraordinary beings. And those extraordinary beings are the people God places on my path. I don't pick and choose. When I first came here, my mantra was, F God. F God. Get your God away from me. And after receiving the love that you so graciously gave me and taking these steps and applying those traditions and concepts into my life, my mantra now is, I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent he or she who sent me. I do not worry about what to do or what to say, for he who sent me will direct me. And I will learn how to heal as I allow him to teach me to heal. As you men and women, Alcoholics Anonymous, have taught me how to heal one day at a time. And you took it to the next level. You taught me not only how to heal and recreate my life, you taught me how to help others. And I am at the core selfish, self-centered, and egotistical. You taught me how to love without looking for reciprocity. Just love, just because. That is what this deal is about. This primary purpose is about all as one in love, one day at a time. I'm wrapping it up, darling. It doesn't get any better than that. If I never, ever, ever received anything from anybody in my life, I have been overpaid. That is the journey from that dumpster to the divine, which I live in now. Thanks be to you, not me. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do it if I wanted to. Thank you for the gift of life.